Hi everyone. Okay, hope you're doing well. So second part to kind of the video that I posted earlier is if things get really bad and there are people out there on the platform who need support to support their businesses during a downtime, if this really kind of carries on for longer than we'd like, what are our options and how do we exercise them? And so while all the stuff that the government is talking about, such as tax breaks and pushing off tax payments, working with the SBA, the Small Business Administration, for low interest loans and such, there's a lot of stuff out there, but it's hard to find things that are concrete because everything is still so new and it's trickling in slowly and it's being systemized slowly. So I really was trying to do some research to figure out how I can present some stuff that is really factual and concrete. And the best way that I could figure out on how to do that until we hear something more concrete from Turo is to base it off of what Airbnb is doing. And Turo will likely follow a very similar path as Airbnb does. In my last email, or in my last video, I did mention that the email that I received from Turo, it did very briefly mention that they do have a government committee and that they are working with government to see how we can get more assistance for any of the hosts on the platform that have much larger fleets, that have much larger businesses, and they may need the support, maybe not now and maybe not next month, but if this continues on for extended periods of time and if it takes quite some time to rebound, then it totally makes sense as to why somebody would need that support. So for those people out there that really need this, I wanted to make sure that I got this information out there and did it in the best way possible. So I'll begin with kind of going through what I have found through Airbnb and what steps they're taking, because I'm pretty sure that whatever Turo does is going to mirror what Airbnb already has going on. So I'm going to cite a Business Insider article. There's actually a lot of news out there on this, and I will read you off some key points and then we'll go into kind of what I think it means. And I went through the SBA process today, so I'll share what I have so far as well. So let's get through this. So according to Business Insider, in a letter sent Tuesday to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, the online travel company, recommended that the legislature pass a collection of tax relief and loan measures that would specifically benefit its network of hosts. The measures would provide both short-term help for property managers and potentially make the short-term rental business more profitable for them. We are primarily concerned about the everyday people who depend on travel and tourism for their livelihood, Chris Lehane, Airbnb Senior Vice President for Policy and Communications, said in a letter. Airbnb has continued welcomes conversation during your work to ensure any economic relief package includes these or other measures to financially support American short-term rental operators and travel industry solo entrepreneurs and small businesses during this time of crisis and recovery. And in another article I read, the CEO of Airbnb was saying that roughly about 50% or more of their hosts really depend on the revenue from Airbnb to make their mortgage payments or the payments on their properties. So that is a large chunk of their population that really depends on that, and that is taking a large hit. And then it continues on with Airbnb also urged the legislature to make it clear that the property managers that list on its site and others are eligible for disaster loans that are being made available through the SBA as a result of the coronavirus relief law passed earlier this month. The company is pushing for legislature to allow property managers to get a tax credit for the money they take, offering accommodations through its service and its competitors. Alternatively, it urged Congress to allow those hosts to defer the taxes on their short-term rental income. So again, it sounds a lot like this would apply to Turo hosts as well. And finally, the last thing that I thought was of value was they talked about how hosts who rent out a single room in a property, they currently don't have to report income for rentals that are fewer than 14 days, and they don't have to pay taxes on it. Airbnb is asking Congress to bump that limit up to 60 days, which I'm sure for a lot of people would be incredibly helpful. So it's really interesting to see how aggressively Airbnb is going after that, and that really illuminates how many people might seriously need help as this thing continues to progress. And hopefully, if we have best case scenario and this is only a couple weeks, then I think majority of people will be okay. We won't need to take these measures. But again, it's always great to know what your options are so that later on a decision is not made for you and you still have the ability to make a choice. So today I actually went through the SBA's website, and what it is it's filed under a disaster loan application. Now, I was only able to get so far into the application because I'm not actually really applying for a loan, but I can share with you a little bit about what you will need. Now, why I think Airbnb and Turo will really have to work with Congress and legislature is because I think not everybody on these platforms is set up as a business, and from going through the SBA process, it seems like you do have to have some type of a corporation to apply for these loans. Now, I'm not 100%, but based on what I had to fill out, that is what it looked like. And I did not see any options for just an individual in this disaster relief program to apply for that loan. And when you do go through the process in the very beginning, it's all pretty easy and straightforward. The part where you're going to have to put in some work is that it does ask for your personal income. It's going to ask for tax returns, and you do have to fill out that information, so it's a little bit time consuming. But I would say the first half of the application is rather quick and easy, and it's all a lot of just basic information. It asks for what type of business you are, how you're set up in terms of a corporation or an LLC, sole proprietorship, and then it'll ask for your federal tax ID number and so on and so forth. And now when you are applying for the loan, it is categorized as something called EIDL, and that is under economic injury, and that is going to be specific to the coronavirus. And as you go through the process, it will actually, in the declaration selection, it is actually going to name your state, and next to it have coronavirus COVID-19, and that's how you designate which loan it is that you're applying for, and that is the one that is going to be available to people. So I would recommend going through that process if you are already set up as a corporation and you think that you are going to have to take these steps. And even if you don't fully go through the process, you can start it and actually just save your progress. And if you want to submit maybe at a later date because you're unsure if you need it or not, you can do that as well. But with all of that said, and knowing that these resources are available to us, you also have to really understand what the implications of taking on a SBA loan, a low interest loan like this, means for later on when things settle down, when the economy sort of settles, and sort of what it looks like, right? So in every economy, we have something called the debt cycle, and Ray Dalio has done a really, really great job on explaining this debt cycle. And so if you are borrowing money, it's going to mean something later on. And so it's important to kind of understand that so you can really evaluate if that is the best choice for you to make. Now, before I go into the debt cycle, in my own personal opinion, and I've been voicing this in probably the last 3 videos that I've made, is that it's so much better to figure out another way to push transactions and make sales. That is always the route that you want to go, so that you don't end up with that debt, eventually that debt that you're going to have to pay off. And there is good debt and there is bad debt, and this would technically sort of fall under the bad debt, because this money that is being borrowed right now through the stimulus package that has been passed for the SBA is to help people survive during a time where transactions are not being made. Good debt is when you're borrowing money and putting it into something that is going to make money, right? So it's like, for example, if you have a farm and you need to buy a tractor so that you can harvest and maintain your farmland, that is good debt. That is good debt leveraging, because it's increasing your productivity, it's increasing your efficiency, and it's going to turn into transactions and revenue for you. Whereas what the predicament that so many people are in right now, they're going to have to borrow just to stay alive long enough till they can get back in business. So that's sort of the difference between the good debt and the bad debt. And again, I'll reiterate it. I think the best way to go about it is to hustle for sales, optimize your business, do what you can in the limited space that we're in, and minimize any potential negatives. Now, again, many people have savings, many people don't have savings. We already know that about the American population. Most people don't have savings, most people are not prepared. And given that we don't know how long this is going to last, for some people who do have savings and who are prepared, that could potentially only last so long until they might need assistance if this goes on too long. Now, for other people, with a combination of what they can do in sales and a combination of savings, they might be able to get by without having to do any type of additional assistance. But let me talk about the debt cycle really quick, because it will give you some insight into how to think about this. So the debt cycle happens in 6 stages, and right now I believe that we are on stage 4, and then we'll go through 5 and 6. But real quick, stage 1, just so I don't butcher this is the good part. So people are borrowing money, they're not borrowing too much, they're using it for productive purposes. So in the case of a lot of Turo hosts, financing a vehicle is a way of borrowing money that's good, because you're using it to produce more money. Step 2 is the bubble. People look at recent past and decide asset prices. Total demand and consumption will keep going up. They overconfidently borrow more money and start having too much leverage. That's also, we can relate an example to Turo. If you're buying way too many cars because you think, oh, everything's great, but the demand is not there to support the supply, then you're over leveraging yourself and you're going to find yourself in trouble. Stage 3 is the top, and that occurs when central banks, regulators, and sometimes even the lending institutions notice problems. They take measures, raise interest rates, tighten lending standards, and so forth. And stage 4, this is the stage that I believe that we're in right now. This is the depression. It happens when growth slows and reverses beyond the ability of monetary and political authorities to help. Yet they keep trying. This is when we see interest rates go to 0, which we know that the Feds just did that, or even a negative. The central bankers are essentially out of bullets at this point, and everyone just has to suffer. So, of course, with this situation being so unique in that we didn't go through a natural debt cycle to get here, this was really prompted by something that no one really anticipated to happen in this point in time. So this makes the situation a little bit unique and could potentially have it playing out different. But I think that this is going to follow the normal debt cycle that we're going to see. So we're in that depression right now. Stage 5, and this is the one to really think about, is the deleveraging phase. It's when businesses and families reduce spending to pay down debt and reduce their leverage. It can last a long time, but as leverage falls, people get a handle on their debt service costs and slowly start to recover. So that's what you want to anticipate for. You want to anticipate for what you can handle. So if you are going to take these low interest rate loans, you have to know where we are in the economy right now in the stage of the debt cycle. We're in depression. We're going to head into a deleveraging, meaning that people all around are going to be spending less. So if people are going to be spending less and the economy as a whole is transacting far lower, it likely means that you're going to be making less money, less revenue, less transactions, but you're still going to have the burden of paying back these loans that you have. So something to think about, and you really want to motivate yourself to not have to go down that direction and really use sales as a way to get yourself out of a hard spot that you might be in. And finally, stage 6, the economy normalizes and the cycle repeats. Now, I think what's going to be interesting for the American economy is that this year it's an election year. So as we make our way out of this pandemic that we're going through, I think that there likely will be some type of manipulation to the economy and to the markets so that we go into, or so that the current administration can go into the election in a strong way. Also, going back to this deleveraging phase, I think something that they're doing to help offset that is what they had recently talked about in one of their briefings about sending out the American people checks for just money to kind of survive during this time, especially for all the people that are out of work or laid off. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. I find this stuff incredibly fascinating. Especially because we just really haven't seen anything like this in most of our lifetimes. So that's something to think about. But I think that if you can really follow some of the steps that I've laid out in my past few videos, that there is a strong potential to overtake the situation by means of transactions and sales and continue to bring that revenue in, because we as Turo hosts, we really now have the ability to provide an insane amount of value to people that need it in a time of need. And in exchange, it's going to keep our transactions going and our businesses going. So this is such a crazy time. It's so unique, and it's very interesting to me. And on a final note, I will leave with this, something really interesting that I came across, and that was in 1918, we had the Spanish flu pandemic, and in 1918, the stocks declined about 50%. 2 years later, we found ourselves in the roaring 20s. After World War II, it took 2 years for Europe to reach their pre-war production levels. So again, another 2 years. And so what we're anticipating is that by 2022, we will see a very robust, strong economy and strong marketplaces, strong transactions come back around. It could take up to 2 years for that to happen. And so for me personally, as I'm sort of planning out my businesses and thinking about my plans for the future, that's a year that I'm really keeping in mind. How do I want to progress from now until then, so that when that time comes around, I'm positioned really well in my life and in my business and for what I'm trying to accomplish. So just some tidbits that I wanted to throw out there that will hopefully spark some thoughts for you guys and get you thinking about where we are now and how we can continue to plant seeds today, so that when that time comes, we are positioned in just such a sweet spot. So hopefully some of you guys find that helpful. And again, if you need any more assistance on the SBA side of things, of course, you can reach out to your local small business administration office. There are also people out there who are loan brokers who also assist in SBA loans. So you might want to do some research and see if you can find somebody in your area. But the website, a couple of days ago when I checked, they didn't have this information available that they do now. So it looks like everything is being updated quite frequently. So definitely go on the SBA website. Just do a quick Google search, SBA coronavirus COVID-19 support, and it'll just pop right up and it'll take you right to it. All right, guys. So on that note, that is the information in regards to this and kind of how Airbnb is handling it. And I strongly believe that Turo will model it in the same way. And, you know, I receive an insane amount of messages every single day from hosts, and that was already happening, but now as we're going through this situation, it's happening to such a crazy scale. So I feel grateful that I have the opportunity to hear from a lot of people and what they're going through. And so when I design my content, it's really designed based off of literally the hundreds of people that I hear from on a daily basis and get to talk to, and what I feel would support them the best based on the questions that they're asking me or the situations that they're in. And right now it's a precarious time where so many people are experiencing way different things. And given that we're in a gig economy, a lot of people are in different types of situations. And for some people, this is going to be really, really difficult. And they'll get through it. And so that's why I put out the certain type of content that I do put out, because I think it'll really help some people out there that are going to face certain situations. So as always, do message me, send me your comments and questions, and I'll do my best to get the research done and to provide information that is as fact-based as possible and as current as possible with what's going on. All right, guys, on that note, that is it for me. Do follow me on Instagram at Saimah's Experience, because as the days go on, I will be sharing my frequency of rentals and how I'm capturing these bookings and how well some of the methods that I've discussed in my past videos are working for me. And so hopefully they work for you guys as well. All right, guys, take care, stay healthy, be safe. Goodbye.